Why the Dog Hates the Cat.
"What are we going to eat tomorrow?"
said Widow Wang to her eldest son as he started out one morning in search of work.
"Oh, the gods will provide. I'll find a few coppers somewhere,"
replied the boy, trying to speak cheerfully, although in his heart he also had not the slightest idea in which direction to turn. The winter had been a hard one. Extreme cold, deep snow, and violent winds. The Wang house had suffered greatly. The roof had fallen in, weighed down by heavy snow. Then a hurricane had blown a wall over, and Ming Li, the son, up all night and exposed to a bitter cold wind, had caught pneumonia. Long days of illness followed, with the spending of extra money for medicine. All their savings had soon melted away, and at the shop where Ming Li had been employed, his place was filled by another. When at last he arose from his sick-bed, he was too weak for hard labor, and there seemed to be no work in the neighboring villages for him to do. Night after night he came home, trying not to be discouraged, but in his heart feeling the deep pangs of sorrow that came to the good son who sees his mother suffering for want of food and clothing overtook him.
"Bless his good heart,"
said the poor widow after he had gone.
"No mother ever had a better boy. I hope he is right in saying the gods will provide. It has been getting so much worse these past few weeks that it seems now as if my stomach were as empty as a rich man's brain. Why, even the rats have deserted our cottage, and there's nothing left for poor Tabby, while old Blackfoot is nearly dead from starvation."
When the old woman referred to the sorrows of her pets, her comments were answered by a pitiful meowing and barking from the corner where the two unfed creatures were curled up together trying to keep warm. Just then there was a loud knocking at the door. When the widow Wang called out,
"Come in,"
she was surprised to see an old bald-headed priest standing in the doorway.
"Sorry, but we have nothing,"
she went on, feeling sure the visitor had come in search of food.
"We have fed on scraps these 2 weeks. On scraps! And now we are living on the memories of what we used to have when my son's father was alive. Our cat was so fat she couldn't climb to the roof. Now look at her. You can hardly see her. She's so thin. No, I'm sorry. We can't help you, friend priest. Surely you see how it is."
"I did not come for money,"
said the clean-shaven man, looking at her kindly,
"but only to see what I could do to help you. The gods have listened long to the prayers of your devoted son. They honor him. They have seen how faithfully he has served you ever since his illness, and now, when he is worn out and unable to work, they are resolved to reward him for his virtue. You also have been a good mother, and will receive the gift I am now bringing."
"Whatever do you mean?"
asked Mrs. Wang, hardly believing her ears at hearing a priest speak of gifts.
"Have you come here to laugh at our misfortunes?"
"Not at all. Here in my hand I hold a tiny golden beetle, which you will find has a magic power greater than any you have ever dreamed of. I will leave this precious thing with you, a present from the gods."
"Yes, it will sell for a good sum,"
said Mrs. Wang, looking closely at the trinket.
"and will give us grain for a few days. Thank you, good priest, for your kindness."
No, no, you mustn't sell this golden beetle, for it has the power to fill your stomachs as long as you live.
The widow stared in open-mouthed wonder at the priest's surprising words.
Listen carefully. Whenever you wish for food, you have only to place this beetle in a pot of boiling water, saying over and over again the names of what you want to eat. In 3 minutes, take off the lid, and there will be your dinner, smoking hot, and cooked more perfectly than any food you have ever eaten.
May I try it now?
she asked eagerly.
As soon as I'm gone.
When the door was shut, the old woman hurriedly kindled a fire, boiled some water, and then dropped in the golden beetle, repeating these words again and again.
Dumplings, oh dumplings, come to me. I am as thin can be. Dumplings, dumplings smoking hot. Dumplings, dumplings, fill the pot. Dumplings,
Would
oh,
those 3
dumplings, come
minutes
to me.
never
I
pass?
am as
Could the
thin
priest
as
have
thin
told the
can be.
truth?
Dumplings,
Her old head was
dumplings
nearly
smoking
wild with
hot.
excitement as clouds of
Dumplings,
steam rose from the pot.
Fill the pot.
Off came the lid. She could wait no longer. Wonder of wonders! There before her unbelieving eyes was a pot full to the brim of pork dumplings, dancing up and down in the bubbling water. The best, the most delicious dumpling she had ever tasted. She ate and ate till there was no room left in her greedy stomach, and then she fed the cat and the dog until they were ready to burst.
Good fortune has come at last.
Whispered Blackfoot the dog to Whitehead the cat as they lay down in the sun outside.
I fear I couldn't have held out another week without running away to look for food myself. I don't know just what's happened, but there's no use questioning the gods.
Mrs. Wang danced for joy at the thought of her son's return and of how she would feast with him.
Poor boy, how surprised he will be at our fortune. And it's all on account of his goodness to his old mother.
When Ming Li came, with a dark cloud overhanging his brow, the widow saw that he had clearly had a day full of disappointment.
Come, come, my son.
She cried cheerily.
Clear up your face and smile, for the gods have been good to us, and I shall soon show you how richly your devotion has been rewarded.
She dropped the golden beetle into the boiling water and stirred up the fire. Thinking his mother had gone mad with hunger, Ming Li stared silently at her. Anything was better than this misery. Should he sell his last coat for a few pennies and buy grain for her? Ming Li did not have long to wait. Almost in the twinkling of an eye, he heard his mother crying out,
Sit down at the table, son, and eat these dumplings while they are hot.
Could he have heard correctly? Did his ears deceive him? No. There on the table was a huge platter full of the delicious pork dumplings he liked better than anything else in all of the world, except, of course, for his mother.
Eat, eat, and ask no questions,
said his mother.
When you are satisfied, I will tell you everything.
Wise advice. Very soon the young man's chopsticks were tinkling. He ate long and happily, while his good mother watched him, her heart overflowing with joy at seeing him at last able to satisfy his hunger. But still the old woman could hardly wait for him to finish. She was so anxious to tell him her wonderful secret.
Here, son,
she cried at last, as he began to pause between mouthfuls.
Look, just look at my treasure.
And she held out to him the golden beetle. Ming Li looked between the beetle and his mother a few times, confused as to how the beetle would be connected to the delicious pork dumplings he seemed unable to get down fast enough.
There was a wizard here this afternoon, sure enough. Only he was dressed like a bald priest. That golden beetle is all he gave me, but with it comes a secret worth thousands of cash to us.
Ming Li held the trinket idly, still doubting and waiting impatiently for the secret of his delicious dinner.
But, Mother, what has this brass bauble to do with the dumplings? The wonderful pork dumplings, the finest I ever ate.
Baubles indeed! Brass! "Hush, my boy. You have no idea what you are saying."
Then she told him what had happened, and ended by setting all of the leftover dumplings on the floor for Blackfoot and Whitehead, a thing her son had never seen her do before, for they had been miserably poor and had had to save every scrap for the next meal. Now began a long time of perfect happiness. Mother, son, dog and cat all enjoyed themselves to their heart's content. All kinds of new foods, as they had never tasted, were called forth from the pot by the wonderful little beetle. Bird nest soup, shark's fins, and 100 other delicacies were theirs for the asking, and soon Ming Li regained all his strength, but, I fear, at the same time grew somewhat lazy, for it was no longer necessary for him to work. As for the two animals, they became fat and sleek, and their hair grew long and glossy. Unfortunately, pride invites sorrow. The little family became so proud of their good fortune that they began to ask friends and relatives to dinner so that they could show off their good meals. One day a Mr. and Mrs. Chu came from a distant village. They were very astonished to see the fine style in which the Wangs lived. They had expected a beggar's meal, but went away with full stomachs.
"That was the best meal I have ever eaten,"
said Mr. Chu, as they entered their own tumble-down house.
"It was, wasn't it? I know where it came from,"
exclaimed his wife.
"I saw Widow Wang take a little gold ornament out of the pot and hide it in a cupboard. It must be some sort of charm, because I heard her mumbling to herself about pork and dumplings just as she was stirring up the fire."
"A charm? Why is it that other people have all the luck? It looks as if we were doomed forever to be poor."
"Why don't we borrow Mrs. Wang's charm for a few days? Just until we pick up a little flesh on our bones, of course. We will return it, sooner or later."
"Doubtless they keep very close watch over it. When would you find them away from home, now that they don't even have to work anymore? Their house only has one room, and it's no bigger than ours. It would be difficult to borrow this golden trinket. It's harder to steal from a beggar than a king."
"It was meant to be. Luck is surely on our side,"
cried Mrs. Chu.
"They're going this very day to the temple fair. I overheard Mrs. Wang tell her son that he mustn't forget to take her, and that they were going in the middle of the afternoon. I'll slip back then and borrow the little charm from the box where she hid it."
"Aren't you afraid of Blackfoot?"
"He's so fat, he can do nothing but roll. If the widow comes back suddenly, I'll tell her I came to look for my big hairpin that I lost while I was at dinner."
"All right. Go ahead. Only, of course, we must remember we're borrowing the thing, not stealing it, because the Wangs have always been good friends to us, and we have just dined with them."
So skillfully did this crafty woman carry out her plans that within an hour she was back in her own house, gleefully showing the priest's charm to her husband. Not a soul had seen her enter the Wang house. The dog had made no noise, and the cat had only blinked her surprise at seeing a stranger, and had long gone to sleep again on the floor. Great was the dismay and weeping when, on returning from the fair in expectation of a hot supper, the widow found her treasure missing. She went back to the little box in the cupboard 10 times before she could believe it was empty, and the room looked as if a cyclone had struck it when she and her son had finally stopped looking for the beetle, knowing it had been stolen. Then came days of hunger, which were all the harder to bear since the recent time of good food and plenty. Oh, if they had only not got used to such feasting! How hard it was to go back to scraps! If the widow and her son were sad over the loss of the good meals, the two pets were even more so. They were reduced to begging and had to go out daily into the streets in search of stray bones and garbage that decent dogs and cats turned up their noses at. One day, after this horrid time of starvation had been going on, Whitehead began suddenly to hop about in great excitement.
What is the matter with you?
Growled Blackfoot.
Are you mad from hunger? Or have you caught another flea?
I was just thinking over our affairs, and now I know the cause of all our trouble.
Do you indeed?
Sneered Blackfoot.
Yes, I do indeed, and you'd better think twice before you mock me, for I hold your fortune in my paw, as you will very soon see.
Well, you don't have to get so angry about it. What wonderful discovery have you made? That every rat has one tail?
First of all, are you willing to help me bring good fortune back to our family?
Of course I am. Don't be silly.
Barked the dog, wagging his tail joyfully at the thought of another good dinner.
I will do anything you like if it will bring good fortune back.
All right, here is the plan. There has been a thief in the house who has stolen our mistress's golden beetle. You remember all our big dinners that came from the pot? Well, every day I saw our mistress take a little golden beetle out from the black box and put it into the pot. One day she held it up before me, saying,
Look, Kitty, this is the cause of all our happiness. Don't you wish it was yours?
Then she laughed and put it back into the box that stays in the cupboard.
Is that true?
Questioned Blackfoot.
Why didn't you say something about it before?
You remember the day Mr. and Mrs. Chu were here? And how Mrs. Chu returned in the afternoon after master and mistress had gone to the fair? I saw her, out of the tail of my eye, go to that very black box and take out the golden beetle. I thought it curious, but never dreamed she was a thief. Unfortunately, I was wrong. She took the beetle, and if I'm not mistaken, she and her husband are now enjoying the feast that belonged to us.
Oh, let's bite them.
Growled Blackfoot, gnashing his teeth.
That would do no good,
Consoled the other.
for they would be sure to come out best in the end. We want the beetle back. That's the main thing. We'll leave revenge to human beings. It is none of our business.
What do you suggest?
Said Blackfoot.
I am with you through thick and thin.
Let's go to the Chew house and get back that beetle.
I am not a cat.
Moaned Blackfoot.
If we go there, I couldn't get inside, for robbers always keep their gates well locked. If I were like you, I could scale the wall. It's the first time in all of my life I've ever envied a cat.
We will go together.
Continued Whitehead.
I will ride on your back when we are crossing the river, and you can protect me from strange animals. When we get to the Chew house, I will climb over the wall and manage the rest of the business myself. Only you must wait outside to help me to get home with the prize.
No sooner arranged than done. The companions set out that very night on their adventure. They crossed the river as the cat had suggested, and Blackfoot really enjoyed this swim, for, as he said, it took him back to his puppyhood, while the cat did not get a single drop of water on her face. It was midnight when they reached the Chew house.
Just wait here. I will return.
Purred Whitehead in Blackfoot's ear. With a mighty spring, she reached the top of the mud wall, and then jumped down to the court inside. While she was resting in the shadow, trying to decide just how to go about her work, a slight rustling attracted her attention, and pop! One giant spring, one stretched out claw, and she had caught a rat that had just come out of his hole for a drink and a midnight walk. Now, Whitehead was so hungry that she would have made short work of this tempting prey if the rat had not opened its mouth and, to her amazement, begun to talk in good cat dialect.
Please, good kitty, not so fast with your sharp teeth. Kindly be careful with your claws. Don't you know it is the custom now to keep prisoners with their honour? I will promise not to run away.
What honour has a rat?
Most of us haven't much, but my family was brought up under the roof of Confucius, and there we picked up so many crumbs of wisdom that we are exceptions to the rule. If you will spare me, I will obey you for life. In fact, I will be your humble servant.
Then, with a quick jerk, freeing itself,
See, I am now free. But honour holds me as if I were tied, and so I make no further attempt to escape.
Much good it would do,
purred Whitehead, her fur crackling noisily and her mouth watering for a taste of rat steak.
However, I am quite willing to put you to the test. First, answer a few polite questions, and I will see if you're a truthful fellow. What kind of food is your master eating now, that you should be so round and plump, when I am thin and scrawny?
Oh, we have been in luck lately. I can tell you, master and mistress feed on the fat of the land, and of course we hanger-ons get the crumbs.
But this is a poor tumble-down house. How can they afford such eating?
That is a great secret. But as I am in honour bound to tell you, here goes. My mistress has just obtained, in some manner or other, a fairy's charm.
She stole it from our place,
hissed the cat.
I will claw her eyes out if I get the chance. Why, we've been fairly starving for want of that beetle. She stole it from us just after she had been an invited guest. What do you think of that for honour, Sir Rat? Were your mistresses ancestors of thieves?
Oh, why, that explains everything,
wailed the rat.
I have often wondered how they got the golden beetle, and yet, of course, I dared not ask any questions.
Of course you didn't. But listen up, friend rat. You get that golden trinket back for me, and I will set you free at once of all promises made. Do you know where she hides it?
Yes, in a crevice where the wall is broken. I will bring it to you in a jiffy. And how will we live when our charm is gone? There will be a season of scarce food, I fear. Beggars' lives for all of us.
Live on the memory of your good deed,
purred the cat.
It is splendid, you know, to be an honest beggar. Now scoot. I trust you completely, since your people lived in the home of Confucius. I will wait here for your return.
Laughed Whitehead to herself.
Luck seems to be coming our way again.
5 minutes later, the rat appeared, bearing the trinket in its mouth. It passed the beetle over to the cat, and then, with a whisk, was off forever. Its honour was safe, but it was afraid of Whitehead. It had seen the gleam of desire in her green eyes, and the cat might have broken her word if she had not been so anxious to get back home, where her mistress could command the wonderful pot once more to bring forth food. The two adventurers reached the river just as the sun was rising above the eastern hills.
Be careful,
cautioned Blackfoot, as the cat leapt upon his back for her ride across the stream.
Be careful not to drop the beetle. In short, remember that even though you are a female, it is necessary to keep your mouth closed till we reach the other side.
Thanks, but I don't need your advice,
replied Whitehead, picking up the beetle and leaping onto the dog's back. But, alas, just as they were nearing the farther shore, the excited cat forgot her wisdom for a moment. A fish suddenly leapt out of the water directly under her nose. It was too great a temptation. Snap went her jaws in a vain effort to land the fish, and the golden beetle sank to the bottom of the river.
Great,
Said the dog angrily.
what did I tell you? Now all our effort has been in vain, all on account of your stupidity.
For a time there was a bitter argument, and the companions called each other some very bad names, such as Turtle and Rabbit. But just as they were starting away from the river, disappointed and discouraged, a friendly frog, who had by chance heard their conversation, offered to fetch the treasure from the bottom of the stream. No sooner said than done, and after thanking this accommodating animal profusely, they turned homeward once more. When they reached the cottage, the door was shut, and bark as he would, Blackfoot could not get his master to open it. There was the sound of loud wailing inside.
Mistress is broken-hearted,
Whispered the cat.
I will go to her and make her happy.
She sprang lightly through a hole in the paper window, which, unfortunately, was too small and too far from the ground for the faithful dog to enter. A sad sight greeted the gaze of Whitehead. The son was lying on the bed, unconscious, almost dead for want of food, while his mother, in despair, was rocking backwards and forwards, wringing her hands and crying at the top of her voice for someone to come and save them.
Here I am, mistress,
Cried Whitehead.
and here is the treasure you are weeping for. I have rescued it and brought it back to you.
The widow, wild with joy at the sight of the beetle, seized the cat in her scrawny arms and hugged the pet tightly.
Breakfasts, son, breakfast. Wake up! Fortune has come again. We are saved from starvation.
Soon a steaming hot meal was ready, and you may well imagine how the old woman and her son, heaping praises upon Whitehead, filled the cat's platter with good things. But never a word did they say of the faithful dog, who remained outside, sniffing the fragrant smells and waiting in sad wonder. The horrid and most greedy cat had said nothing of Blackfoot's part in the rescue of the golden beetle. At last, when breakfast was over, slipping away from the others, Whitehead jumped out from the hole in the window.
Oh, my dear Blackfoot,
She began laughing.
you should have been inside to see what a feast they gave me. Mistress was so delighted at my bringing back her treasure that she could not give me enough to eat, nor say enough kind things about me. Too bad, old fellow, that you are hungry. You'd better run out into the street and hunt up a bone.
Maddened by the shameful treachery of his companion, the enraged dog sprang upon the cat, and in a few seconds had shaken the life out of it.
And so disappears the one who forgets a friend, and who loses honor.
He cried sadly, as he watched Whitehead dash into the bushes that led to the city. Rushing out into the street, Blackfoot barked out the treachery of Whitehead. Barks rose with both pity for Blackfoot and shared anger at his misfortune caused by the cat. If you think dogs are loyal to humans, you surely have not seen their loyalty to each other. The dogs from all around the city swore their commitment to finding Whitehead and making her pay for her dishonesty. As the months continued, the dogs became restless, and thus bore their anger upon any and all cats who crossed their path. And that is why the descendants of old Blackfoot, whether in Japan or in the great countries of the West, have waged continual war upon the children and grandchildren of Whitehead. For 1,000 generations of dogs have fought them and hated them with a great and lasting hatred.